Good afternoon. This is the Oregon Employment Department with our monthly media briefing. We're going to give everybody just a few more minutes to join, and then we'll get started. Okay, I think everybody's in. So my name is Rebecca Gibson King. I am the Communications Director for Oregon Employment Department. Today's speakers are Gail Krumenauer, State Employment Economist, David Gerstenfeld, OED Director, Lindsay Leahy, Unemployment Insurance Director, and Karen Madden-Hubblebaugh, Paid Leave Oregon Director. Excuse me. Couple of quick notes. This call is being recorded, and we will post the recording online and send out the link to everyone who RSVP'd after the briefing. We'll take questions after the opening remarks. And if you're having any technical difficulties or are otherwise unable to get your question answered today, please send an email to communications@employ.oregon.gov, and we'll assist you. I will now turn it over to Gail Krumenauer. Please go ahead, Gail.
Thank you, Rebecca. Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. This morning, the Employment Department released the jobs numbers and unemployment rate for Oregon in November. Total non-farm payroll employment fell by 7,300 jobs in November. The unemployment rate was unchanged at 3.6%. Several sectors of Oregon's economy had large job losses over the month. The biggest of those losses occurred in professional and business services, which declined by 2,900 jobs. Construction employment fell by 1,700 jobs over the month. And we saw a few other sectors with losses of at least 1,000 jobs each. Those included leisure and hospitality, the information sector, and financial activities. We did see a large gain in private healthcare and social assistance, which added 2,400 jobs over the month. Oregon's unemployment rate was 3.6% in November, and that was similar to the US unemployment rate of 3.7%. Now, taken together, the most recent numbers show little change, a decline of 0.2% in the employment climate in Oregon since early summer. Monthly ups and downs have resulted in about as many jobs in November as we had in May or June. Similarly, there's been little change in the labor force in recent months. So far in the second half of the year, the size of Oregon's labor force has been relatively stable. The total number of unemployed persons has grown in Oregon by about 2,500. November was the 7th consecutive month with an unemployment rate between a record low of 3.4% and 3.7% in the state. Now we had nearly 2 years of consistent monthly job gains in Oregon as we were recovering from the pandemic recession. And over the past year, we've seen a departure from that, where in half of months, we've seen job gains, and in the other half, we've seen job losses. With that, I'd like to give the floor to Unemployment Insurance Division Director, Lindsay Leahy. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Gail. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Lindsay Leahy, and I am the Director of the Unemployment Insurance Division. I'm joining these monthly media briefings because in March, we will be launching unemployment insurance benefits in our new modernized system, Francis Online. The launch of unemployment insurance benefits is the third phase of the modernization project. The first phase was completed in September of 2022 with the migration of employer contributions to the new system. The second phase was the rollout of Paid Leave Oregon benefits in August of 2023. We are laser focused on the upcoming launch, which will ultimately make it easier for Oregonians to file for and receive their unemployment insurance benefits. The current mainframe system we're using dates back to 1992, and we are excited that the new system will bring much needed improvements to the customer service experience. During the rollout, we are focusing on minimizing disruption in payments to claimants currently receiving benefits, preparing current claimants for what to expect, and supporting new claimants on how to use the new system. We have been planning for this change for several years. And as with any major technology project, the state has an extensive oversight process. However, we know that we can't plan for everything, and we expect that there will be bumps in the road. And we are prepared to adapt quickly to address issues as they arise. We also know that Francis Online will help us provide better customer service. For example, the system will automatically process simple claims, which will free up the unemployment insurance team to focus on more complex claims. The new system will allow claimants to better self-serve, meaning that they can do a lot more things online instead of waiting for a letter in the mail or calling us. In Francis Online, claimants will be able to access their own online account, see the status of their claim, view letters and eligibility decisions, and respond online to questions about their eligibility, which will help us make decisions faster. We are currently performing testing and conducting training with OED staff who will be using Francis to do things like process claims and review eligibility issues. Next month, I'll be able to tell you more about what the public can expect as we prepare for launch. Now, I'll turn it over to Director David Gerstenfeld.
Thank you, Lindsay. Welcome, everybody. There is going to be a learning curve for the tens of thousands of people who are receiving unemployment insurance benefits each week. Each claimant has a different set of circumstances, and the unemployment insurance programs are still complex, and that isn't likely to change. Some claims will continue to take longer due to their complex nature, while others that don't require additional review will be processed more quickly. We also know that with any large technology implementation, we will learn of things we want to improve when we go live. Our team is ready to watch closely, learn quickly, and rapidly make adjustments to continue improving things. Our modernization efforts will continually evolve as we look at what the public wants and needs. And what Oregon workers and businesses want and need will change over time, and we'll continue adjusting what we do to better serve them. Identity verification has been a topic of discussion for the department lately, especially as it relates to our efforts to protect people's benefits and our trust funds for both Paid Leave Oregon and unemployment insurance. As we've discussed at previous briefings, fraud, particularly people using stolen identities, is an ongoing issue for our agency and for other agencies and other states. Since the first day we launched Paid Leave Oregon, people have been trying to use stolen identities to steal benefits. These weren't identities that were stolen from our agency, but from one of the many other places where people commit fraud and gain access to such information. Unfortunately, we expect similar attacks when we launch unemployment insurance benefits in March. Just like any other benefits agency, the Employment Department is always trying to find the right balance between the customer service of providing timely benefits and the customer service of protecting people's benefits by making sure someone hasn't already used their name to file a claim. When that happens, it can cause a delay for the real person while we investigate and correct our records. For many people, our identity verification process is working well, but for a few, it isn't. In most cases, the process is doing what it's supposed to and is stopping ongoing fraud attacks. But we know that some people with legitimate claims are having challenges. Karen will talk to you about what we're doing to help those people. It's also important to note that fraud causes a significant increase in workload. Regardless of who files the claim, whether it's a legitimate claimant or a person committing fraud, we still have to handle every single claim. And fraudulent claims actually create more work because once it's flagged as potential fraud, we have to review the claim to make sure it's not actually legitimate. And if we determine the claim was filed using a stolen identity, we then take additional steps to ensure the legitimate claimant can file a claim should they become unemployed or need paid leave in the future. Coordinating with the appropriate local, state, and federal law enforcement agencies also takes time. I know some of you may be frustrated with how we can't give some even general information about the amount of fraud we experience. But our first priority must always be to protecting people's benefits and the trust funds that pay for them. We know that people committing fraud watch the news, and we've seen them change their behavior in the past after watching news segments. In the interest of transparency, we started producing yearly fraud reports that we release when the information no longer poses a significant risk. So far, we've issued a report on unemployment insurance fraud from 2020 and 2021, and we'll issue the report for fraud in 2022 next month. We'll include information about Paid Leave Oregon fraud in January of 2025. We're continuously improving and updating our systems and procedures to stay ahead of people who are trying to commit fraud, people who also continually change their tactics. For example, we recently participated in a national meeting about fraud and related topics from the unemployment insurance program, so we can learn about new fraud prevention strategies, learn what tools other states are using and trends they are seeing, and share best practices. We will stay diligent in our efforts to protect people's benefits and the trust funds. And now I'm going to turn it over to Karen with the update on the rollout of the Paid Leave Oregon program. Karen?
Thanks, David. I appreciate it. I'm giving an update today on the latest data for Paid Leave Oregon, and I will also discuss some recent changes we have made to improve the customer service experience. Paid Leave Oregon is officially 3 months old, and we're overall off to a great start. Considering that we launched a new program and a new technology platform, we are really pleased with our progress. Let me update you on our data, which you can also find on the OED data dashboard on the Oregon Employment Department website by clicking on News and Agency Information. As of last Friday, we have received 37,513 ID verified applications. And of those that have been resolved, which means either approved or denied benefits, there are 30,911. This is 82% of claims being resolved. So far, this means over $112 million have been paid to over 25,000 of our neighbors during qualifying paid leave events. We are continuing to refine how we present our data in order to make it more relevant to the types of information people want to know. And our goal is to not only be transparent, but to present information in a way that makes sense to the public. We are working to add elements of clarity to our dashboard early next year. As we all know, some customers have experienced delays with their paid leave claims. These are mostly due to issues with identity verification and failure to respond to identity verification letters that are received in the mail. To protect both our customers and the Paid Leave Trust Fund, every single application goes through an identity verification process. This is an essential part of the fraud prevention and customer protection process. Some people, not all, receive letters in their physical mail, and they have 2 weeks to respond to that in order to verify elements of their identity. About 70% of the people who we do send those letters to have responded within the first 7 days after we mail it. Keep in mind, people have 14 days to respond, but of the remaining 30%, some still respond in that 14-day window. Some don't respond, and we have alternative paths to assist them, and a large portion of those turn out to be fraudulent claims. We know some customers have experienced delays, and we're not satisfied with that, and so we're continuing to make changes to help people who may need help with the ID verification process. Here are a few of our recent changes. Customers can now see more information in their online accounts, including viewing more letters. We've changed the system and internal processes so staff can more easily update claims when customers have verified their identity so that we can move those claims forward and pay benefits faster. We also just today are adjusting the Verify My Identity prompt on our Francis online website to make it clearer and more accessible. I'm extremely excited that we have changed our processes so that payments to consecutive leave claims can be paid out during any business weekday rather than once weekly, which was our original process. This also means that people are getting paid faster as soon as their claim is approved and processed. We are evaluating our work queues, phone, and written response times daily to adjust staffing and workload assignments. As one of many examples, we have doubled staffing in our investigations unit, and our list of individuals needing additional ID verification is now worked to a net 0 each day, and the remaining folks on the list have been contacted, and we are waiting for their reply. We have improved the way in which we assign claims and responses to claimants to be more timely. We are assigning specialized teams of staff to work on specific types of claims. For instance, people who are having their issues with the identity verification receive help from staff who are trained specifically on that issue. We're continuing to develop additional paths for accommodations for claimants who need assistance in a variety of ways, including people with disabilities, language, or technological barriers. And the system is providing metrics that allow us to make these changes, which is exciting because we can see the places where the experience is not optimal and make changes. We will also continue to train our existing staff in more efficient methods of processing, as well as hiring additional team members. in particular frontline staff, so that we can provide the best possible customer service experience. I'm now going to turn it back to Rebecca for the question and answer portion of the briefing.
Thanks, Karen. We're now going to open the lines to members of the media to ask questions. If you're joining us by phone, please make sure to hit *6 to unmute yourself. And if you, again, as always, if you don't get your question answered today, please feel free to email us at communications@employ.oregon.gov. So as a reminder, this call is being recorded and we will send out the link to reporters who RSVP'd after the briefing. It usually takes us a few hours to render the video. And then we also post the link of the recording on our website at oregon.employ.gov. Sorry. Thank you for participating today. So I'm going to open it up to questions. So first up is Christina Giardinelli with K2. Go ahead, Christina.
Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, I'm seeing that Michigan got a $2.6 million federal grant to combat fraud. Wondering if Oregon, this would be a question for Director Gerstenfeld, has Oregon applied for anything similar?
That's a good question, Christina. And we have applied for and received federal grants to combat fraud in the unemployment insurance program. And we're very actively engaged with the National Association leadership that kind of coordinates best practices as well. But we did receive some grants specifically to help combat fraud in the unemployment insurance program.
Can you state some of the dates and amounts of those?
I don't have those handy offhand, but we can certainly follow up with that.
Thanks.
Hey, Christina, this is Rebecca. I'll follow up with you on that. Okay, any other questions? Not seeing any hands. There we go. Okay, Peter, go ahead.
Okay, can you hear me?
We can.
Okay, I guess this one's for David, or Lindsay can jump in. With the move to unemployment insurance benefits under Francis Online, is the system going to be nimble enough to, I don't suspect Congress is going to lay on a bunch of new programs like it did in 2020. That would probably challenge anybody's system, but is the system nimble enough to, if Congress does make changes in the regular unemployment insurance program, whether it can handle it without, I would suspect the 1992-93 system would be a lot more of a chore than this one, but I'm just taking your opinion on that. Go ahead.
Yeah, Peter, you're right. The new system, Francis Online, is much more flexible and it's much easier for us to make systemic upgrades. And that was one of the key things that we wanted out of this new modernized system, was to make sure that it was more flexible, that we could more quickly make changes. And we've already seen that in the system as we've been in development and as we've been using the system for the contribution side and for paid leave Oregon benefits. I will say that, as you kind of intimated, no system that I'm aware of can implement programs when they're created retroactively, like some of the ones during the pandemic were, or without some advanced guidance of what exactly they'll look like, create them. So if there were to be another half dozen programs created overnight, it would still take time to implement them, but it will be much easier to do it in the new system and much more user-friendly for people using those new systems.
Okay, that's all the question I had. That Gail, I have one that continues our conversation from last briefing. I know the U.S. Census, according to a report from Josh Lehner, has reported its preliminary findings that although the population loss statewide wasn't as great as it was last year, in relative terms, the numbers don't jive with the PSU population estimates. I know at the last briefing, you expressed concern that if our immigration slows to zero, and I can't tell from these numbers, and I don't know, suspect anybody can, where this is a long-term trend, beginning of a long-term trend, or just a couple of flips. how that will affect the employment picture in the future.
Thanks, Peter. It is a good question and timely. In total, from 2021 to 2023, the Census Bureau estimates that Oregon's population declined by 23,000 or 0.5%. And that's something that I've looked into. And also, yes, the Office of Economic Analysis has looked into as well. That does differ from Portland State University's Population Research Center, which shows a gain of 34,000 in population over that same time frame. And so the difference between those two estimates stands at about 57,000. Whichever estimate you choose, they tell a similar story. Oregon's population isn't growing as fast as it has in the past, or it's outright declining for the first time in over 40 years. When I put that into the labor market context, what we've seen historically is that Oregon has often been one of the faster growing states. That's from the, at least the 1990s through at least the mid 2010s. And net in migration, so that's more people moving here from other states and other areas than are moving away. That's been the primary way that we have grown our population and grown our labor force over the decades. And in turn, that's also given us the opportunity to grow faster than the US over that period of time in terms of job gains. So if we find ourselves or continue to find ourselves in a situation where the labor force is not growing, we're either having stagnating population growth or outright declines, that can affect the ability for us to add jobs at the rate that we have in the past.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Peter. So next is Erin Arellano. And let me unmute you. There you go. Go ahead, Erin.
Can you guys hear me?
We can.
All right, perfect. Just quick question. Going into the next year or the years following, are we going to be seeing any more or any major changes in terms of the program itself, maybe possibly longer or shorter paid leave periods?
It's a great question. And any of those kinds of major programmatic changes would be statutory. So they would require the legislature to make movement if it were to change like the weeks or something that is fundamental to the program. So at this point, we don't as an agency or program expect something like that, but we do have legislative session that happens both coming up in 2024 and then also in 2025.
All right, thank you.
Okay, next is Kyra Buckley with OPB. Go ahead, Kyra.
Hey, everybody. Can you hear me okay?
We can.
Awesome. Thanks so much for taking my questions. So it's either for David or Lindsay. I'm wondering about unemployment insurance overpayments. And we've been hearing from some customers that the communication around if maybe they had a claim that was approved sometime last year, and then it was deemed that they were actually not eligible or overpaid, and that they owe money back to the state, that the communication around that has been a little frustrating. I'm wondering if you guys are hearing that as well, and if there's any efforts to make that communication more clear. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Kyra, and I'll take the first stab at least at this. And we certainly have heard that. And we know that, frankly, regardless of the communication, it's not a pleasant situation for somebody to be informed that, unfortunately, we believe that they receive benefits that we later determine they may not have been eligible for. But we have heard some of the concerns in response to Peter's question earlier about the flexibility of the system. It's much easier for us to adjust the communication, both the content and how it's delivered and other aspects of that. So that's one of the things that we've been working on as we modernize, is updating the communication, including about overpayments, and making some other process changes that we think will address some of the concerns that people have raised.
Thank you so much.
Okay, Christina, you still have your hand raised. Did you have a follow-up question that you wanted to ask?
Yes, I do. Karen, you had stated that folks could now view certain letters that they couldn't previously view in their Francis Online system. Does that include ID verification letters that you spoke about that were previously not able to be viewed in that system?
It does not.
What does it include that it did not include before?
There were several letters, I think, and I maybe we'll have to get back to you on this so that I can double check and give you the correct letter, but there were some letters that weren't published online of all the 40 letters or whatever we have available kind of in our library. So I can get the list of the letters that are published now.
Is there any further investigation done on whether or not folks are properly receiving their identity verification letters in the mail? I know we got a lot of complaints about people saying they did not get those letters.
Yeah, the statistics I gave earlier indicate that most people are getting them. So the mail is working. We've done multiple tests in our system, both from the Francis system, the letters, the postal service, all the different steps in that process. And the data does indicate that the majority of people are receiving them because they are responding.
Is there anything in the investigation that shows why some people have not been getting it? Are their addresses perhaps mistaken in the system? Are there old addresses that the system is picking up that they did not input maybe?
Since the system is new, the address and the claims should be new as of the time the person claims. So that should be relatively new address is the only address that would be in there, the paid leave address inside of Francis. We know that sometimes postal service mail doesn't get delivered. Maybe it gets switched with an apartment. So there are things that are outside of our control. So those things will still occur with any mail that occurs from anywhere. So that is bound to happen for some proportion of people.
Has the department gotten a volume of complaints about not receiving the mail?
Honestly, the list of people that we have that are sort of saying, hey, I didn't get my PIN number is, I think it's probably under 200 people, PIN letters, and we are tracking those. So it is a pretty small proportion compared to what we're sending out.
Is it enough to be consistent with mail issues, or could it be consistent with other issues?
I'm not going to suppose on that. It's been tested. The system is working. It is delivering the mail, and we can't control things once they reach the postal service.
And if I could just add, we do know that some mail challenges are inevitable when you're serving tens of thousands of people. Our systems can work perfectly. Somebody could steal the mail, as Karen said, or other things can happen. So that's why her team has been focused on making some of these other adjustments to find other ways to assist people who do run into challenges getting through the identity verification process. But that process really is crucial to make sure that the ongoing attempts to commit fraud and to steal people's benefits can be stopped.
Are there other states that are doing this process differently? You mentioned talking about best practices. What are other states looking at in terms of identity verification? Are they using these same types of systems, and are they working for them?
I'm only going to talk in very general terms, Christina, because again, we know that the people that are committing fraud pay attention to interviews like this and any other information they can get to adjust what they do. We do talk to other states. Other states are using the same and similar approaches. And to be clear, we in other states use a variety of approaches to do the identity verification, but there are other states that also use a very, very similar process of sending out mail with PIN letter type information.
Okay, well, it looks like we're have no more raised hands, so I'm going to wrap us up. Just as a
One more, I'm so sorry.
Go ahead, Christina.
I'm just wondering, I know you can't talk about the volume of fraud, we've discussed this already. In talking with other states in those meetings that you've attended, David, have you heard anything about their volume of fraudulent complaints, and is it anywhere close to Oregon's per capita?
So there is discussion when states get together about the volume of fraud, and of course it fluctuates over time. So that is a topic that's discussed, and it's something that the states use to help plan, prepare for, and respond to attacks.
But in terms of how we compare to what other states are dealing with, can you speak generally to that?
It really does vary over time. And again, we're not going to talk about volume, because whenever we talk about the amount of fraud that we're seeing, that can help tip off the people that are committing fraud. I will repeat what I've said before, which is that it is a significant amount of fraudulent claims that are coming through, and a consistent workload for our teams to constantly combat that. And other states also have a significant workload.
Do we struggle with it generally more so than other states?
I really can't talk about the details of how other states are operating. I think the fact that there was a national meeting of states talking about this shows that all states are struggling and that it is a significant issue nationally.
Okay, well, thank you everybody for attending. Just one more reminder, we will be posting the link to this media briefing on our website at oregon.gov/employ under news and agency info. And we will also be emailing the link out to everybody who RSVP'd. Thank you everybody for your partnership and keeping Oregonians informed about our important services. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.